how did you go about capturing a dragon war in D&D and like in this adventure? Because dragons are always scary, but they're probably a bit scarier when you have no frame of reference. Like multiple generations of people have not seen a dragon.
Absolutely. So we handle it in a few different ways. Folks who like dragons are going to get more than their fill in this. You're going to experience the threat of dragons, but then also face them as not just, the chromatic dragons that we would expect from the Dragon Army forces, specifically the Red Dragon Army, which is one of the major threats of this adventure. But you'll be seeing dragons as draconians. You'll be seeing dragonels, which are these almost more wyvern-like, like smaller, less intelligent, quicker, but also ready to serve as mounts, sorts of draconic steeds. And then as you start progressing in level, you'll run into true dragons for the first time, chromatic dragons, particularly the forces of the Dragon Queens, which are predominantly red dragons, but blue dragons, black dragons, a whole variety. And some of the first times that you encounter them, it will just be like, is this a dragon? Is this something else? Like, is this just a legend? But then when they finally get revealed, they're coming to the battlefield with their full powers, and it has the potential to be a really dramatic moment.
The D&D movie in particular reminded me of like how horrifying dragon attacks can be, because it's the first time you see a black dragon strafe an army.
Yeah.
And, fire is always upsetting, but acid is like, oh.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so that changing of the battlefield and that environment has got to be pretty strange.
Yes. And it's the sort of thing where there's a few different ways that we'll see that. Like, in part, you'll face dragons, dragonels, draconians, just on the battlefield, as you would in any other D&D adventure. But really capturing that experience of, you're in a battlefield. It's not just you. There's hundreds of other people in conflict, is really something that we wanted to capture in this. And that's even something that we're doing in a couple of different ways. In the course of the adventure, you'll find these battlefield encounters where they're sort of meant to be, like instances in like the Lord of the Rings films, where yes, there are hundreds of people like clashing around you, but the camera zooms in and there we see Eowyn fighting the Witch King, and everything else is sort of the background, and this one fight and this one moment is really the big focus. These battlefield encounters really try to recreate that, while also throwing in a lot of the unpredictability of these conflicts. So you'll have instances where you'll be fighting the main climactic foe of whatever the part of the adventure is, but then maybe horses without their riders stampede or rampage through, or like a volley of stray arrows fly into the fray. These other chaotic elements.
Oh, that's interesting. So you could be like in the middle of an adventure, and like you as a dungeon master, do you like roll on a random encounter of like those elements just strafing your party?
So in these particular encounters, and they're usually reserved for big events, while there are these massive conflicts going on, there's a whole table where at the end of the initiative order, you see how the battlefield affects what's to come.
That's terrifying. I love it.
Particularly early on, things get very mundane. Oh, maybe, a new critter gets added, or like there's a stray shot. But toward the end of the adventure, when there's dragons strafing, or there's like other more magical effects, things get a little wild.
So this is like really core to the entire adventure, is that like those random instances, like you said, like a stray shot, but then it just like escalates more and more.
Yeah, they're really meant to be set piece encounters where, in the cases where there is a massive battle that's going on and the players are involved in it, then we wanted to do something that really made it feel like the backdrop isn't a forest or a dungeon, it's war.
Perfect. And there is also there is a kind of battle experience game that you can use with this adventure as well.
Yes.
So you can like jump into that
Absolutely.
and try to capture that big, large battlefield experience as well.
So the partner project to Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen is Dragonlance Warriors of Krynn. And Warriors of Krynn is a standalone strategy board game. And you can pick up Warriors of Krynn, you can play the campaign in that, you can have a great experience all on its own. But if you also have Shadow of the Dragon Queen, the two projects speak to each other. Shadow of the Dragon Queen also doesn't require Warriors of Krynn, but if you have it, you'll see opportunities in the course of the adventure where the DM has the option to, all right, we are at this point, there is this battle that is going to happen. DM, if you so choose, you can do X, Y, and Z, or you can go over to Warriors of Krynn and you can play Scenario X, and that scenario is what is happening in this particular battle. And in the case of that, players will have the opportunity to play that scenario. There's even rules in that game for articulating your own characters from Dungeons & Dragons into the game. And they'll have this experience that is both a battlefield experience, but also a very Dungeons & Dragons strategy game, where it's not just about moving around units and fighting against foes. It's doing things around the fringes of the battlefield that change the course of battle. And depending on the results of how your scenario goes over in Warriors of Krynn, you can then bring all of that back to Shadow of the Dragon Queen and have the results of that battle affect how your campaign progresses.